What is going on, Nuggets Nation NBA fans? My name is Tom Leuthner. Welcome back to Nuggets Today, presented by Fan Arch. We got some things to talk about today, and I think they're a little bit different, but I am going back to some guys, obviously, that we have talked about, and then I do have something special to say to you guys at the end of this episode. So let's start with John Wallace. Now, John Wallace was on some podcasts, he did some press conferences, and he is addressing the backup point guard position, which was directly asked to him. So I think that his answer was pretty interesting. So his complete answer, quote unquote, feel confident in the guys that we have to fulfill that role, but that need is still there. So if you really look at what he is saying that at this point in time, they are confident in who they have on the bench, which probably means Bruce Brown, Jalen Pickett, obviously Nikola, and something I'll get to in a little while, Jonas Valanciunas, and I'll get to DA talking about him. But he also did say that it is a remaining need, and he did say that the phone lines are still open, that they are making their calls, which I think is a massive factor, and I think that Ben Tenzer does play a part in that, but obviously John Wallace was talking, so there's not much I could say on Tenzer and what part he's or what role he is actually playing in those, but John Wallace saying that the phones are still going and they're checking in on teams is very interesting to me. Not pretty interesting. I know I say pretty interesting a lot. It's very interesting to me, strictly because if you look at teams who are still trying to move on from people and teams that are looking to bring in new people, I think it is going to be maybe a little bit more active during the season or right before the season starts when majority of players are still on contracts. Now, up to this date, we still see guys like Brogdon, guys like Westbrook, guys like DeLon Wright, Landry Shamet, Ben Simmons still unsigned. Now, there are talks for the Knicks to go get Ben Simmons. They're in talks with him right now. There were also some talks for them to bring back Landry Shamet. But I do think that there are still some decent veteran options, guys who I think Denver can grab. I've covered a bunch of them. I've covered campaign. I know people don't like that take, but I've covered it. I've talked about it. I've talked about Malcolm Brogdon. I've talked about majority of the point guards who are still out there who Denver can grab, but who knows? Maybe they're looking to extend the role of a guy like Tamar Bates so that he could learn under Bruce Brown on his two-way and sign him for the remainder of the season midway in. Maybe they look to trade Zeke Naji and move on from his contract. I know Ayo Dosunmu is a guy whose contract seems to be on the trade block, and the Bulls want to move on from him, so maybe somehow they move Zeke Naji's contract, maybe a second-round pick if they have one to move for a guy like Ayo. I know he's not technically a point guard. He may have been playing the small forward last year, but I'd rather see him at the two. Maybe they get him and develop him into a point guard if that is a possibility. But maybe it's not, and maybe they just stick with what they have, and towards the deadline, or like I said, right before the beginning of the season, that is something that they go ahead and look out for. Now, like I said, I talked about Jonas when I brought up the backups and the guard and the ball movement, and that is something that David Adelman has talked about. Now, he always knows what to say, in my opinion. So he obviously got interviewed, and they asked him about the depth that Denver had acquired this offseason, and he had a very well put together answer, and his exact, like I said, quote unquote, we did really well, but saying that it's not a video game. We got to make sure we're doing the right stuff, and it's not just putting out a roster that looks good. And he is 100% correct. And he had talked about Tim Hardaway Jr. a little bit. He had talked about not having MPJ back, which I think is going to be a little bit weird, but something that was very positive in what he had said is the fact that he went and he had stated that he called and talked to Jamal, called and talked to Yoke, and he called and talked to AG, and they seem very excited, and they think that there's going to be a new look in the gym. So, like I said, obviously Cam Johnson is a massive acquisition for Denver. Obviously, a guy like Bruce Brown bringing the energy back. He also broke down what everybody does. I was listening to Denver Sports talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. and the role that he is going to be playing in Denver, and supposedly when the Mavericks let go of him, it seemed to be because he wanted to put the ball on the floor more, maybe play dribble handoff, but I think that's a great kind of game to play when you have a guy like Jokic and a guy like Cam Johnson and a guy like Aaron Gordon, but another player who's good at the dribble handoff game and setting screens and being sort of a point big is Jonas Valanciunas, and that is something that DA continues to cover. DA loves the Valanciunas fit. He thinks that Valanciunas is a point center who can play in lineups when Jokic isn't there. In games that Jokic isn't going to play, he will be that point center. And he had said, and now this is something that I I brought up, and people do not like hearing it, he has said that he thinks he could be a great fit for the non-Jokic minutes and a great fit alongside Nikola Jokic, which is something interesting to hear because people don't believe me when I continue to say it. So I don't think that there will be many lineups where you see them two together a lot, but there are lineups where I guarantee they'll get 5 to 10 minutes, maybe certain games here and there, getting to the playoffs, maybe not in the playoffs, but getting to the playoffs. So I think David Adelman is huge on this bench. I think that he is a very good, smart coach. He will work out the zones. He will make sure that whatever defense is being ran is the defense that fits the team best. That's something I talked about the other day to somebody, is that if Jonas and Jokic are in the game, we run a zone, and they're going to do that in certain types of situations where they can. Maybe against a team like the Timberwolves, where they got Naz Reid and Rudy Gobert in the game at the same time, or even Julius Randle, where Jonas can guard Gobert because Jonas isn't that great of a defender. I'm not saying Jokic is an amazing defender, but he has his aspects of his defense that are amazing. So I think DA knows what he's doing, and I think that he is saying all the right things to keep Jonas in check and happy to be in Denver. Now, talking about how good Denver is, that does not draw away how good other teams have gotten. So obviously, officially today, when this video is being recorded at least, Bradley Beal signed a 2-year deal with the Clippers. Now, I'm not saying Bradley Beal is this amazing player, but what that allows the Clippers to do is start Bradley Beal. They still have one contract spot available or one roster spot available that they can now offer a veteran minimum to. So there's some guys out there they could still go get. They could still go re-sign Amir Coffey if they want to. But now their lineup, their starting 5 at least, looks way better than it would have because it is now obviously you have Kawhi in there. Now, obviously, you have James Harden in there. So your 1 through 5 is going to be James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, John Collins, Zubac, with a bench of Chris Dunn, Bogi Bogdanovic, Derrick Jones Jr., Brook Lopez, who's also there, Nick Batum. They have a deep bench. So Denver's gotten better, but the other teams continue to also get better. We've covered a lot of them. Obviously, the one topic I want to talk about right now was the fact that the Clippers did get better. And I don't think Bradley Beal is this amazing player, but I think it's able to help them with their bench depth, bringing in Bogdanovic and Chris Dunn now both off the bench instead of starting one of them, as well as Derrick Jones Jr. now coming off the bench. So, I think Denver's in a great spot, but I think that other teams are also in a great spot. And in my opinion, until they go ahead and improve in that backup point guard position, they're still lacking a little bit. As good as this team looks on paper and as good as this team is going to play, I think they're lacking a tiny bit. But the last thing I want to talk about is the community talk. So obviously, this is a lower third we've seen where the community has spoken. Let's talk about it. But I just throw that in there because there's not much for us to talk about that you guys have said, but what you guys have done for me, which is amazing. And I want to thank all of you guys for 1,000 subscribers. I know this is not a topic related to Denver, but I want to give you guys a quick moment, shout all of you guys out. I know that some of you might not like my takes. You think my takes are controversial. This is a lot of my opinion based. There's been our ups and downs with people who comment, who love my content, who hate my content, but continue to watch and support. So I really do want to say thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for 1,000 subscribers. It really means the world to me. I know that's not this huge accomplishment, but for such a short amount of time, a little over 2 months, putting out content for you guys and for you guys to get me to that point, I am so very and beyond and forever grateful for all of you guys. So thank you guys so much for that milestone. I hope that we continue to move on with that milestone and continue talking Nuggets. We got a couple months. I may be taking a break. I will be traveling this summer, so let's see where I'm able to get some service and get you guys some more content, but I'll continue to put out content as much as I can, and I really do love and appreciate all of you guys. That's all I got for you guys today, Nuggets Nation. I will catch you guys tomorrow with another episode. Make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment. Let me know if you guys want me to cover anything specifically, and again, if you have not, please hit that subscribe button.